Okay, we're on section 9.5. This is called completing the square. This is going to be one of those sections where you're going to be mad at me at the end, but we got to do it. So, the phrase that I'm going to use a lot is I'm going to say divide by 2 and square it. So if that's written down there, that will help you out in general. What I'm going to do here first is I'm going to square something. This section is called completing the square. It has to do with perfect square binomials. And if you do this, and I wrote these notes off to the side. If you take x plus 3 squared, you take x plus 3 times x plus 3, well, you get x squared. 3x and 3x give me 6x. And then 9 at the end. Okay? And this is where the divide by 2 and square it come into play. If you square a binomial, if you take the number in front of the x, you divide it by 2, and then you square it. Well, if you divide it by 2, you get 3, which is this original number. And then you square that number, you get the 9. And so we're going to do a few of these problems where we're just going to start with this number. Okay, we're not going to have the number at the end or the number over here. We're going to start kind of with this piece in the middle. We're going to divide it by 2 and find this number. And then square it and get that number. Now, it's kind of weird right now, but I'll show you how this works right now. So, let's say I have this equation. I have x squared plus 6x equals 216. Okay, and let's say this is something that would not factor easily. I can't really do that. We need another method to solve this equation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, and I want to make it into a perfect square like this. Okay, so I'm going to take the 6, I'm going to divide it by 2, and get 3, which matches this number here. And then I'm going to square it. I'm going to write plus 9. Let me underline it. I'm going to underline it because I also have to do it to the other side. You don't have to underline it necessarily, but I'm trying to show you that's what I did to both sides of the equation. Okay? Well, what happens here? Let me see. I have, once I write this first number down, just put x plus in front of it. Okay? Because I just showed you that x plus 3 squared is x squared plus 6x plus 9. And over here we have 216 plus 9 is 225. Okay? Now this is better because now I can just take the square root of both sides and get rid of that squared. The squared's over the whole side. So let me square root both sides. Okay, that's just going to be x plus 3. And the square root of 225 is, I always double check it in your calculator. For our purposes though, this one goes evenly. And remember, when the square root is a positive, you have to consider both the negative and positive. We talked about that on Thursday. And all these will work out like that. So whenever you do a square root, put the plus or minus. It won't be a negative. Okay? Finally, we are going to subtract 3. And this is going to look a little weird. Put the negative 3 up front, plus or minus 15. And we'll do a couple more of these, don't worry. Okay, so I have x equals negative 3 plus or minus 15. If this was a radical over here, if this is something funky, I'd stop. But I can actually continue on. I can do negative 3 plus 15 and negative 3 minus 15 to find my two answers. So negative 3 plus 15 is equal to 12, and negative 3 minus 15 is equal to negative 18. So those are my two answers here, 12 and negative 18. Now, we'll often have two solutions with these quadratics. Okay, so let's try a couple more here. Then I'll give you a couple try it. Okay, so what I want to do first is I'm going to move the 16 over. Okay, I'm going to move it over there because I want this basic form that we started with here. Let me scooch this back real quick. I want this form here where it's the x squared plus something x, and on the other side equals the number, because that'll work out easier if we set it up like that. So we're going to start, if it's not already like that, we're going to start by doing that. So move the 16 over, and it becomes negative. Okay, remember the phrase, divide by 2 and square it. So take the negative 14, divide it by 2, and you get negative 7. and then square that. When you square it, this will always be a positive number, plus 49. Okay, when you square that, it will always, always, always be a positive number. Okay, bring down the x, put it in parentheses squared. Then we have negative 16 plus 49. Let me see, that's going to be, sorry, Mr. Shepard came on the speaker, he's throwing me off. Let me see, minus 16, that'll be 33. Okay, I'm back on my game. Okay, so I took the number here, I divided it by 2, and I squared it. And then I put the x and the squared around it. And it always works out as long as you divide by 2 and square it. Okay, you could multiply this out and you'll see that you will get this like I showed on the other one. All right, next we will square root. X minus 7 equals plus or minus square root 33. Okay, so this square root 33 didn't go evenly, so I'm just going to leave it in that form. The book makes it a decimal. That is a really dumb idea. Leave it as a radical. Leave it as a radical because you are not, you just will need to do that in your mathematical life here. So you have a minus 7 here, plus 7 on both sides. X is equal to 7 plus or minus square root 33. That's your final answer. When it's a messy radical like that, that is your final answer. And the fact is that these will be messy. If this doesn't factor nicely, this will be messy. That's just all there is to it. Okay, on this next one, I'm going to kind of guide you. I'll pause it several times in this video. Go ahead and get this problem down. The first step is to move the 15 to the other side. Go ahead and do that. Okay, so if I move the 15 to the other side, x squared plus 9x equals negative 15. Hopefully I remember to pause that. Okay, now this one's going to be a decimal. That's okay. You can even put it as a decimal on your paper. That's fine. Take the 9, divide it by 2, and put it here, and then square it and put it there. Go ahead and do that. Okay, so the 9 divided by 2 is 4.5. And then square it. I should have my calculator right here, but I don't. It'd be about 20, right? 4.5 times 4.5 equals 20.25. I have to add that to both sides of the equation. Okay, the next thing you're going to do is put the x plus in parentheses of the squared here, and over here you're going to add those up. Go ahead and do that. Okay, x plus with the squared over there. That's going to be 5.25. Wait, yes. Okay, next thing, square root both sides and then subtract the 4.5. Okay, so square root both sides gives me x plus 4.5 plus or minus 5.25. I'm going to just double check it real quick. Does that have a nice square root? No, it doesn't. So just leave it. Square root 5.25. Okay, and then subtract the 4.5 over. X is equal to negative 4.5 plus or minus the square root of 5.25. Now, they got a little messier because there were a couple decimals in there, but the steps you do are exactly the same. Okay, so it wasn't like a whole different kind of problem. You just punch them in the calculator and do the exact same thing. Okay, let's do a couple more. I'm going to give you them to do as a whole. If I make these videos too long, it'll start to crash anyway. All right, so let me scooch this over. We'll have two tries. Go ahead and try this problem on your own.